Hey mamas, welcome to the Mom Chat Show where we talk all things motherhood and we keep it real, raw, and honest. And me and my new besties, we're ready to share it all with you. Yes, you heard right. All of it, the mistakes, the trial and errors, the ups, the downs, the emotional roller coasters, and the happy times too. So if you're ready to laugh, cry, learn, and just have a good time, then this is your podcast show. You're my people. Let's chat. So welcome to Mom Chat Show. I'm so excited to have my guest on. Y'all are going to love her. I love what she does. It's really going to be, honestly, a game changer for us moms because it's something that we definitely need, especially after, having babies, our bodies changes, our mind changes, everything changes. So this is definitely going to help us in so many ways. So go ahead and introduce yourself and let me know a little bit about you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm totally honored to be here. My name is Kim Coffin. I am a trauma-informed somatic, being body-based, empowerment, sex, love, relationship coach, teacher, speaker. I do all of the things. I'm also a graduate of Mama Gina's School of Womanly Arts, and I've been training for the last many years with Layla Martin and founder of Get Your Sexy Back. That would be my business. I am also a mom. I am a mom to a 16-year-old. I call them adults because the 16-year-old's more mature than the boys. She is more mature. She's almost 17, to be honest. The boys are 19 and 22. And she's the most mature out of all three, having a blast. Way more fun now than I used to have, to be honest. I love babies. They're great and all, but when you're stuck at home or you're stuck running between work and home and juggling three little ones or 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds or 3 teenagers when they're young teens, it's hard. So it really quickly did lead me into burnout. It led me into burnout and exhaustion. And it was really, really hard. So if it is hard right now for you, I get it. Totally get it.
I completely agree. Oh my gosh, especially when they're little, it can be so hard sometimes to, get out of the house like you want to as much because, there's so many things you have to do and you need all the things. Oh my goodness, you're traveling every time you leave the house. So
I hated the diaper bag. Oh my gosh, I hated the diaper bag. It became my purse. How depressing.
Yeah. I always hated the fold out strollers. That drove me crazy, especially when you have multiples. It's oh, here we go.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. But what it did to me is it left me, because of the way we've been brought up, because of the way we've been programmed and what we're told and what a good mom is and what a good wife is and all of these things. It left me stressed. It left me burnt out. It left me fried. It left me caught in this cycle of overgiving and giving and giving and giving and doubting myself and people pleasing, which ultimately left me feeling very, very numb too, right? And very much saying, yes, yeah, absolutely. Even if I wanted to scream inside, right? So it's interesting. There's all these rules of how a mom and a woman and so forth are going to show up in this world. And very quickly we can get caught in these patterns. Am I doing it right? Am I good enough? Trying to make sure, but really when it comes back to it, it's a problem being conditioning, messaging, and all of this stuff. And we can reclaim it. We totally can reclaim it. And we can do those years in our own pleasure, in our own joy, not burnt out, not stressed out. And you go ahead and ask me whatever you want to ask me, and we'll dive into that.
So before we dig deeper into that, because I honestly can agree, when I started out as a mom, I struggle with the same thing. So I understand completely what you're talking about. It literally is why I birthed the show, because of it. So I get it. And it's can be honestly frustrating because they don't advertise that part of it.
Oh no, none of that's shared. Not before. It is now, but not then.
Yeah. They don't really do that. And, you're left with this bright, happy idea of motherhood. But then it's when all these other horrible things that sometimes pop up, you're wait,
now they didn't sign me up for this part, that part, and you're just trying to like figure out like, okay, so how do I even navigate this? How do I even get through this? Because I wasn't prepared for it. So yeah.
Yeah. There's so much guilt in there. There's shame mixed in there. If you're carrying any part of trauma, whether we're talking the big T, big life events, or the little t, the little things of not speaking nicely to yourself, hating your body, being, teased by mean girls at school, whatever that may be, it's still, yeah, sure, you're an adult now, but it's still in your body. So these little T's of trauma can really build up and build up and build up. And before we know it, we get really stuck in this cycle. And it's hard to get out of. It seems like it's hard to get out of. It feels huge.
It does. It does. So I'm glad you mentioned like the body and the struggles that come with that, right? So that leads me to this question. What made you want to do what you're doing? Like what happened throughout your life, throughout your journey to be like, you know what, this needs to be talked about. People need this, and I'm going to help them with it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. Thank you. So I see a big turning point in my life being in 2013, where, I was beyond the guilt, the doubt, like they're all teenagers at this point, right? But it's like the guilt and the doubt and the shame. And now I'm exhausted and I'm tired and I'm resentful and I'm frequently feeling rushed and stuck in this go, 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 gotta get here, gotta get here. We got sports, we got school. Like, in the meantime, I got a smile on my face. I'm not sitting at home really, really upset and hurt with this. We're pushing through it with a big smile on, right? You know what I'm talking about. But in 2013, I had this really big feeling that there has to be another way. There has to be something else. This can't be it, right? And I started to reclaim my boundaries. I started to saying no to certain people in my life. Big one was my mother. It was leading up to that point. It was a very long journey. Looking back, I can see very clearly now with some separation, there was betrayal and narcissism and a whole pile of other things. I also really noticed in 2013 that I was getting the messages to slow down, like slow down. And when I didn't slow down enough, I was like, yeah, I will later. There's all this, I'm working on it, but I got to do this first. The universe did it for me. I broke my ankle in 3 spots. I needed 2 plates and screws and surgery to fix it. So very quickly, busy family household here with 3 very active, all in sports teenagers. I broke my right leg. Like I couldn't go anywhere, couldn't drive, couldn't do anything for weeks, like 3-4 months. Who am I kidding here? Like 16 weeks. It's not like a little bit of time. So, the biggest thing that was really bubbling up at that time was this thing with my mom. And especially because my girl was my last, and she was hitting that age as she was coming into, how old was she at that time? She was born 2006. So by 2013, she's more independent. She's more, going out with friends and dances and things. And this was starting to bring up my own trauma as well. At 14, I woke up in the middle of the night being sexually assaulted by my stepfather. And I told my mother the next day. It was a horrific event. I can see myself going through every single trauma response for the next 6 hours in between the time where he left to work versus the time he assaulted me. And the next day, the bigger betrayal, though, and that's why I don't want to touch too much on that, but the bigger betrayal was my mother. She believed me initially, but then within half an hour, sent me to school, big red flag. And then within a couple of hours, told me I dreamed it. I made it up. It didn't happen. So that betrayal was huge. And by 2013, she was still very much a part of our life. My daughter was going out on her own. My mom was like, we want to take her away for a vacation to a film in New York. And I'm like, who exactly? And she was like, oh, your stepfather and I was like, no, like there was all of this coming up. And my daughter was like leaving my hip essentially, right? Like she wasn't always with me. So the more she got older and the more I got older, the more my be good, smile a lot hormones started to dwindle. I started to not want to put up with it anymore. I started to set my boundaries to say no, but it was still very, very wobbly. very wobbly. It was hard. My mother was very hard to say no to. A very controlling woman who I actually can see and say now that I was afraid of, even in my 30s and my 20s and so forth. So in 2017, I really started reclaiming. It took between 2013 and 2017 to, wobble back and forth. No, yes, no, yes. But in 2017, that is when I really started to reclaim my life, my boundaries, my body, my truth, speaking up, shared with the world really, really quickly that my stepfather sexually assaulted me and told everybody, and it confronted my mother again. Like, it was like, I am not carrying this anymore. And that's where I started my reclamation journey of really reclaiming my body, really healing the trauma of sexual assault, of the societal sexual trauma that we're living in, of body trauma, of, negative thoughts, of putting ourselves down, of hating our bodies. Really learn to come back in home, in my body, and empower myself, and then of course others. So that's the Coles notes of what happened.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Your story, for one, is powerful. And two, I'm sure there's so many people that can relate to the struggle of feeling like they're not completely heard and that they are trying to like figure themselves out. Because honestly, the time period that happened, that's the time that you're figuring yourself out the most. You're really just coming into yourself. You're learning who you are. You're learning more about your body and how it works, how it operates, how you even view the world. You're still in that big question mark of everything is like, what is this? And you're curious and open. And to have something so traumatic happen, it kind of like shuts that down, the process of you being open to everything.
Yeah. It disconnects us from our body. We realize it's not safe, and it might not be a sexual assault that somebody experienced. It might be a bad boyfriend. It might be the teasing and crap that goes on in like grade 6, 7, and 8 in sex ed. Like, it might be other not so, I shouldn't be so upset about this kind of stuff, right? We like to minimize it. And this stuff makes a big impact on us. Growing up in a very sex negative, toxic society that way is really hard. We're not taught what our pleasure is. We're not even taught as women, female identifying bodies, to follow our pleasure. We're not like, the messages we receive are, it is for your husband or your partner, or to perform, pleasure for them, or to have babies. Like, that's the unspoken message about our bodies that we are growing up with. And that itself, that is a huge, huge traumatic event to feel. Like, what do you mean? Like, I got to hide? Women are, hunching over, covering their breasts as they're developing. Like, it's not comfortable. It's not safe. Our periods are shamed. We hide tampons. Like, there's so much in there. So yeah, I just want to say that because I know we all have different stories, but it's giving us the same end result with our bodies. They're not safe. They're not really for us. They're not for our pleasure. And we need to put that away and not talk about it.
Oh, that is so accurate. That is very accurate, because honestly, I feel like because a lot of the conversations that need to happen don't really happen as much as they should. And it kind of leaves that room for the outside to kind of determine how you view it, because it's not discussed or celebrated. And that's kind of disheartening, especially when you have a daughter. So that leads me to this. After going through that, what changes that you feel like you needed to do within your life, raising a daughter and wanting a positive outlook on body and sex and just all of those things? Like, what was it that you decided to take into the way that you parent?
Yeah, it's actually what I've made out to be my signature sexy back approach, because first I had to reclaim, right? I had to reclaim all the areas I'd lost myself, right? Could have been voice, boundaries, truth, feeling seen, feeling safe to be seen, feeling sexy, turning on, feeling great in my body and in my power, like confident, like really confident. All the places that we have been told as women growing up to quieten that down, to shush that. That's too much. Put it away. Silence it, hide it. We don't talk about that. All of those messages, all of those unspoken and spoken messages. And then the next step was reconnecting to body, like really reconnecting to the sacredness that is within the sacredness of our pelvic bowl, our feminine, our sacred sexuality, of our inner GPS, like it's our inner innate wisdom that is within our womb space and our lower chakras that we are so disconnected from as a society. So to reconnect to those, we can come home in our body and we can learn how to trust the messages that our body is giving us. That one's super, super important. And with that comes the remembering of, you remember then from there who the fuck you are. Like, you know exactly who you are. And no matter what happens in the world around you, you know that you've got this, that you are okay. You're in your unapologetic power. So those are my steps. And those are what I take my clients through as well.
I love that. I love that so much because, for one, I do feel like as women, over the years, we do lose our power. We lose our voice and we kind of give it away a little bit, with just different things that happen throughout life, situations. It just slowly kind of dwindles a little bit lower throughout life. So I love that you're kind of teaching people to take it back. So I would love to know, how has this mindset and the way that you view things kind of like, I wouldn't say affected, but kind of like brought in your daughter's point of view on all of these things?
Yeah. One of the great ways, like I talk with my boys about this too. They're like, the oldest one's like, oh my gosh, tell me more. The middle one's like, still go away. I don't want to talk to you. I'm like, whatever, we'll come back to this. And the youngest is like, okay. And right, there's fits and spurts with teens, right? Like, and adults, the oldest is 22 now, but I was like, okay, I want to talk about this. And then I don't, but it's always open. It's always available to talk about, whether, she's going through a breakup with a boyfriend or in a relationship with a boyfriend. And we're talking, about her pleasure and speaking up for herself. If we're talking about sports teams and not letting somebody push her around and really different rules that I didn't grow up with. Like, it was like, sit down, be good, fit in, be nice, make people like you, like, all the stuff that makes me want to scream now. Right. So it's always available to her and we're always talking about it. Like, it affects her every single day. It's really hard to pinpoint out where it affects her because it affects every single breath she takes. Yeah.
Yes. I love that. I love that you related to real situations that teenagers go through, in everyday life, so that for one, it's digestible for her and where she's at right now. And then two, that's going to like really help her in the process of becoming a woman. Yeah.
I'm a wide open book. Like, there is no filter on me here and there is no filter on me in my life. And it's always been that way. I've always enjoyed that. I've even been questioned on it over the years. It's like, why wouldn't I tell my kids the truth? Like, of course they know the truth. They know that, they know all and everything all the time. And that's really important to me. Some people will, and I think a lot of our parents or our grandparents, et cetera, were raised to, there's certain things kids just don't need to know. Well, like, depending on how little they are, right? Little, but as they're getting out in the world and they're away from you for 4, 6, 8 hours in a day, they need to have the smarts about them. They need to know what is possible to protect themselves, to stay in their power.
Yeah. So one thing I would love to know, just for like the moms that are listening out there, what things would you recommend for, say, for instance, a mom that has potentially lost a little bit of her power, especially like sometimes after having your kids, you kind of just, I feel like the light doesn't go out, but it does dwindle a little bit.
Yeah.
and the sexy does not always show up right off the back. It can be like, wonky, little wonky, and it can make you feel a little bit less than what you really are. So what advice would you give them on getting their sexy back and feeling more like themselves again?
Yeah, big thing that came up when you asked that was this sexy is not for anybody else. Like this sexy is for you and you only. Because yeah, naturally I'm going to teach about libido. And of course, when you're running around and busy like that, your brakes are on hard. You are probably not wanting to get it on with a partner. And that is okay. Totally okay. It's not about that kind of sexy. Yes, it can be, but it's about turning on and lighting you up from the inside so that you glow, so that no matter what, you are feeling good in your day to day. You're feeling good in your body. You have no problem saying no for coffee with that woman that you despise, or they're mean and you just don't want to sit with them. Do you know what I mean? There's boundaries here, and there's truth, and there's confidence, and it's feeling sexy and turned on for you. When we really embrace that, then we can look at turning it on for others. But first and foremost, it starts with you. It really starts with you reclaiming those places that you're giving your power away. And once you reclaim those, it's like free sailing from there. It's so much fun. And one of the traumas I didn't bring up earlier that I really want to mention because it's so important is birth trauma. Even if it was a great birth, or from snarky nurses or doctors telling us, no, we can't labor the way that we want to. We hold that trauma, any of these traumas we've talked about, we're holding those in our body if we haven't processed them properly. And how it will show up is how it showed up very similar for me. Exhaustion, resentment, hormone imbalances, pain in our lower backs. It might not be vulva pain in our lower backs, pain in our hips, exhaustion. There's so many different ways that it'll show up, but slowly it's chipping away at our power, right? All of this. So it starts really with reclaiming it. And everybody's a little different on their own journey, right? Depending what they're holding in their body and where. But that's why I'm working very, very somatically with my people to help them release it, to teach them tools that they can go and sustain and use them in their day-to-day to help themselves.
I love that. And I feel like it's so needed because I think at times, especially as moms, we forget how much power and control we have because we give so much of it out to the point we forget to give that back to ourselves too, and that we have so much of it in us. But we just have to allow ourselves to, for one, kind of embrace it and remember that we do have it. That's the biggest key. I think we forget it to the point we don't strengthen that muscle. So that muscle becomes weakened over time, you know? So I love that you said that because the light thing is true. I can honestly even say, just from a personal experience, my light I think it went up and down throughout the journey of being a mom. And I think that's kind of common. But I think the biggest key to it all is understanding that when it's down, you can pull it back up, and actually acknowledging that it's going down. That's a really big thing. Sometimes you don't really realize it because we're just kind of, going through the process, the cycle,
The
I call it.
emotions. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we forget. So it's really good to acknowledge that. So I like that you're helping them do that.
Yeah. And I'm hearing a lot of emotions in even what you're speaking here. And our emotions are so important to embrace as well, because we've been taught that to put them away, whether it's corporate America or whether, we're being too emotional, whatever it may be. So really bringing out those emotions and really allowing them to flow through our body is important. It's really important.
Yes. So I would love to know, what advice would you give a mom that decides, you know what, I do want to start this journey. I do want to get my sexy back. I do feel like it's time. You have definitely triggered me. I hear myself in your words. What step would you recommend for them starting this out?
Number one is trust your body. It's talking to you. It might be whispers. Eventually, it'll turn into screams like mine, but it's talking to you. It's like tapping you on the shoulder, going, hello, you want to listen to me? We need to get into this practice of returning back into ourselves, to fueling our own tanks so that we can continue to give, so that we can continue to support others or our businesses or our partners or our children, whatever it may be. But we really need to fill our tank. We need to start somewhere that allows us to fill our tank. So I built this membership that in a way that it drips out, like there's a little bit every month in the beginning of practices that you can bring into your own life, into your own days or your weeks. And then there's 2 live calls each month. You can join the replay and watch the recordings, or you can join live. Like there's so many options. You could hide out and I would never know you're in it. That is also an option. Or you can show up and take advantage and ask all the questions. I've really made it very, very trauma informed, and I'm constantly adding content there to help. And this is for female identifying humans only. I do work with men in partnerships or on their own, but this program is specifically, the Sacred Pleasure membership is just for women.
I love that. So how could they find you if they wanted to research you and just get to know you a little bit and potentially talk to you too?
Easiest way is check out my website, right? Getyoursexyback.ca, and CA for Canada, in case you got to remember that. There's a private Facebook group for female identifying humans as well. Get Your Sexy Back. You can check that out. You can friend me personally on Facebook, Kim Coffin. You might have to search Kim Coffin, Waterloo, Canada. But you will find me. My website has all the direct links as well. And on Instagram, we are Get Your Sexy Back Coach with underscores in between each word. And podcast is Get Your Sexy Back. Like I've got a nice consistent theme going on here.
I love it. So y'all will definitely be able to find her. I love the consistency.
Yeah, you might need to put Kim or Kim Coffin with it if you're just Googling, because if not, you're going to get the song, Get Your Sexy Back, that other song. I think it was called Sexy Back, but it likes to come up. So yeah, you might have to put Kim or Kim Coffin, and Coffin's just like the casket. Don't have to mess it up. Coffin.
Well, you've been a pleasure. I've enjoyed this whole conversation. And like I always say, I always love bringing on guests because I learned something too. And, it's kind of like just nice having that good conversation. And then a little bit of it has good education in it. And then there's some laughter too. A little melting pot of good stuff. So thank you for coming on here. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you so much. Totally honored to be on here.
That's it, mamas. Thank you so much for spending a little time with me on the Mom Chat Show. And I would love to connect with you more. So to make sure of that, click that follow button and also follow us on Mom Chat Show on Instagram, where I will talk to y'all again next week. Bye, mamas.